In 2011, Nexus Magazine published an article, The Chani Project, Computer Interface Communication with Other Realms. It claimed that in 1994, researchers at a secret collider facility in Africa made contact with a parallel universe entity via computer-aided device, and for 5 years received messages and predictions which now have imminent significance for humanity. How did they know? A military whistleblower recounted how in June of 2006, he was assigned a highly classified echelon access only assignment. He was told to clear his schedule for a few weeks to focus on this file exclusively. But the file was actually a whole box of files with over 20,000 transcript pages, and it had echelon stamps all over it. There were thousands of pages of research notes and copies of correspondence between researchers, technicians, and scientists from various fields, plus some newer data disks. What was inside the top secret files? Were scientists using computers to break through our reality and channel entities from somewhere beyond? We'll dive into the history of what happened, John's data from his team of remote viewers, and then you can decide whether this really was an interdimensional secret that leaked. Join me, investigative researcher Rob Counts, and John Vivanco for a metaphysical show that's out of this world. John, how you doing?
I'm doing really good. I love this project.
I gotta ask the question: why is no one talking about this? This is some of the juiciest stuff I've ever seen on the internet.
Honestly, I don't know why. I mean, I am curious. I don't understand why it's never made a big reach like some other stories out there. I really don't know. I couldn't tell you. I mean, maybe it's where it started. Maybe there's only one little pocket of information on it, and there's nobody else that's ever added to it, but this may be the point, because we are going to add to this, that this moves out with tendrils all over the place.
Absolutely. It's like a treasure trove of leads to new things to research, and some stuff that you and I have hit before without even knowing how incredibly connected to the Chani Project that they were.
Yeah.
So just to kind of go over some details here, this all happened between 1994 and 1999. Now, a corporation called Rand and Associates, or RA, had access to an underground CERN-like collider facility in Africa, and this location is still classified. Now, keep in mind, this is according to the drops. Researchers were closely guarded and flown in to keep this location secret. The researchers started receiving communications from an entity who claimed to be from a parallel universe / dimension / timeline. And for 5 years, they asked the entity a series of over 20,000 questions and received answers to more than 95% of those questions. At the same time, other projects were going on, like space-time fabricating, simulation by atom replacement and removal, holographic programming of dark matter, manifestation of quantum energies, and associated string programming with ether or etheric interaction, and a few more. I mean, that's a pretty big laundry list of crazy stuff that they were looking into.
I don't even know what most of those are.
I don't either. And it's, to me, a shame that none of these, or that we're aware of, dropped on any of these internet forums where, for instance, the Chani Project dropped. The Chani Project dropped on an internet forum called Godlike Productions, which we'll be getting into soon. This one, Chani, it stood for Channeled Holographic Access Network Interface, and it merged all the other projects at one point or another. So all of these projects that we just mentioned, this project interfaced with or discussed or brought in at one point or another. And of course, as you can imagine, this entire thing it made the scientists extremely excited. One researcher commented, "This is an orgasmic interaction between science theory and spiritual awareness. Sometimes scientists just need to calm down when they start describing interactions like this as orgasmic. You know, I don't know. I don't know what to say there. This is a sort of similar facility to CERN. So how many of these facilities are out there that are classified that we don't even know about? And does that make CERN a distraction from all of these other true projects that are really going out there? Like, is this the NASA of science?
I've always had a deep feeling that CERN is more of a red herring to capture the conspiracy world, so that everybody focuses. I mean, look at the videos people put out around CERN, you know, opening a portal to hell and stuff like that. I mean,
all those rituals they have at their opening, and the weird, bizarre Shiva statue in front of them. Like, they're just asking for it, aren't they?
Also, you know, I mean, it's more of a public facility. It's not public, but it's the civilian standard science side, peer-reviewed science in the public realm, basically. And you know how that goes, right? So, you know, the deal with secret projects there, I'm sure there's proprietary stuff going on. Honestly, classified stuff, I highly, highly, highly doubt that. Highly doubt it.
Right. Right. Why do you highly doubt that?
Because you think about the trillions upon trillions of dollars that have just absolutely vaporized, tax dollars, our tax dollars that have vaporized into nothing. I mean, before 9/11, Rumsfeld made the statement that trillions have disappeared, right? They don't know where it is. So this happens constantly. We've seen that today with the government oversight checking into this stuff. We see it today. It's been happening forever. Where does all that money go? I mean, obviously into back pockets and slush funds, but we're talking about like lots of black projects are hooked into that. They're receiving tons of money without anybody knowing where it's going. You think about the tunneling machines.
Elon Musk's boring company too, which is all revolved around that, which is really mysterious.
Right. I mean, these things require massive power and massive infrastructure, right, in order to build. But the military or projects associated with the military can pull this stuff off, right? They can pull this off. And we know that these super colliders are things that have to be buried underground for protection's sake. So it's just, you know, not out of the realm of possibility. I think pretty much distinctly in the realm of possibility. Think of DARPA. You think of these government agencies that are very committed and very into developing exotic advanced technology. Of course, they're going to build super colliders. Of course they are.
Yeah. Yeah. And then what are they actually capable of? Why? The why then comes in too, because you know, according to CERN, we're just, you know, bashing particles together. And now we have this evidence of the Chani Project where dark matter is being discussed out in the open. And we'll be getting to a lot of this as we go, right? This was all in the 90s too. Not even, I mean, we're talking about 2025 now, which is so much further more advanced.
Well, you think about our public realm of peer-reviewed science and how that keeps a container on everything. And then you think about, well, gosh, what would they be being schooled on within the realm of black projects? What would be of interest to them versus public science? Well, I think what would be an interest to them would be to understand other worlds, dimensional realities, because, you know, we've got Montauk and other projects that we verified as being real, at least with remote viewing. Can't win in a court of law, but hey, you know, it's there. Those are other realms, other worlds that we intersect with. So of course they would be trying to figure that stuff out, see what they can gain from those realms. Right? It's like when the Roriks were sent to Shambhala, right, by the U.S. government, right, to try to find it. It's always this way, you know.
Yeah, and we know very little about what they're really up to. It's sort of it like goes back to this whole military industrial complex conversation that you and I constantly have, which is like, how are they functioning and operating outside of any oversight that anyone is aware of? This goes outside of any country's power and ability to govern. It's so bizarre, you know, and this would fall right into that. I mean, we've got these black projects going on if this is true, right?
Right.
Now, just to give a little bit more information before we start getting into some of the details. All right, so in October of 1999, the collider's equipment and computer networks were to be upgraded to be Y2K compliant. Now, of course, as you guys all remember, Y2K was all of the buzz back then. Everyone was freaked out that every computer would shut down as soon as year 2000 hit. People thought it was going to be like the end of the digital world at that time. But these particular upgrades that they made to their computers at this facility ended up having a massive effect on the Chani Project itself. In November of 1999, contact with the entity, which for 5 years was continuous and constant on a daily basis, was effectively lost. Months were spent to reestablish contact, and supposedly it couldn't be fixed. And in April of 2000, the research part of Chani came to an end. Or did it? I mean, stay tuned for John's remote viewing data, where he's going to reveal what's really happening during the Chani Project, but let's keep going for now. Okay, so the weird parts of all of this, what made Chani unique from any other channeling method was that the researchers never used a human channeler. That theoretically eliminated the emotion, feeling, and interpretation of a human channeler. It sounds a whole lot like in remote viewing, how you try to take out the human emotion by being able to not judge what's coming in. And this is why it's so important to view blind, from what I understand.
Yeah, it's like this is a mechanical channeling, as opposed to human channeling. It's the mechanical channel. So yeah, that's going to be a little bit more unbiased in general. I'm guessing, especially for that time. But I mean, we look at that time frame and we go, well, this is like 90s to early 2000. It's like, I mean, there's no mention of AI in this or anything like that. But the tech that they had then would have been, 20, 30, 50 years ahead of what maybe even now. I mean, for them to be able to do something like this, they've got to have such an amazingly deep understanding and technology of dimensional realms already that they can apply this.
This whistleblower said that it was a, quote, pure, directed, and dedicated channel, not distorted or affected or infected by human mood swings or interferences from the subconscious mind of a human subject with possible suppressed emotion, memory, and psychological trauma. The imaginative ability of human input was effectively removed from the calculations and as a result. This, to me, for some reason, totally reminded me of John Dee, who was around. He was born in 1527, and he was at large a renowned English mathematician and astrologer and occultist. He was operating under Queen Elizabeth I. And what ended up happening was he was using a scryer named Edward Kelly, and these guys were making predictions and making contact with a being they called itself Medatron. Now, Medatron is also known to be an angelic being, and they're thinking that they're having conversations with an angelic being. And as the interactions go on, it seems like they're getting really valuable information at first, and they keep adding in kind of their human elements. And by the end of it, this entity, for lack of a better way to say it, goes full demon, tells them to start sleeping with one another's wives, and then everything went to hell. Like, it was just like, it was the biggest base plant you could possibly have.
That is the story of human channeling right there.
No, exactly. Yeah. So the fact that they're using this mechanical method, I think, is really interesting, because it seems like they're believing this so much because it's coming directly in. But what I find so interesting about this too is that these scientists are so excited that they are overlooking the risks, which is what happens every time they develop some new type of science too, right?
I know. It's always like that.
You can't see this being. They're not in front of you. You're just excited you're getting an answer back, and you're not considering what dangers could be lurking in this interaction or who could interfere with it.
Well, wait, two things first. So jumping back just a moment, I just want to throw this out there. Every time that we've ever viewed Medatron, it is some type of mechanical-ish Transformer-ish.
Like
I swear,
Megatron?
it's weird. It's weird. It's so weird. Like, it's so confounding and so weird. But I've even tasked this on new students as practice, just in esoteric practice targets. They're blind. I've viewed it before, and Medatron is some type of biomechanical kind of thing that can shape into anything it wants.
This is Megatron. You're literally
it's like Megatron.
Are you sure they're not? Dude, are you sure?
No, I didn't like misspell it. Oh shoot, I misspelled. I said view Metatron, not Megatron.
And then like they're like, no, this is what we saw. It was Metatron. This is what we saw. And
yeah. We see it over and over. It's very bizarre. I don't understand it.
Maybe Metatron infiltrated our dimension much earlier, and Megatron is actually some type of reflection of that entity.
It could be. I mean, it could be. But okay, so then my second point was that that scientists, when you were talking about scientists, they will just do things because they figured out that they can. And I was working a project for somebody a long time ago. And it was an intelligence officer who wanted some information on something. And I brought it up before. You've heard this story before. If people pay attention, they've heard me talk about this. He wanted us to remote view something that he could not tell us what it was because it's classified. And he needed to know if they did what they did. It's actually a pretty simple tasking because we just focus on what he wants to know. And, that's about it. So there's so much hubris in these scientists because they realized they could pull this off. They realized they could do this. And they were able to open a doorway or merge two dimensions, our dimension with another dimension, that cause and will cause and continues to cause many, many, many problems, from different types of beings coming through to bad hair days when you shouldn't have one. You know what I'm saying? Like, just like all sorts of crazy stuff. And we give him the data back and he's like, yeah, I thought this happened. All right, bye.
Yeah.
It's like, so this happens. We've seen it happen. And there are people in the world of intelligence who know that it happens, who aren't privy to the projects, but hear things, here and there, and then want it known, want it investigated, so yeah. Hubris.
Yeah, it reminds me of probably one of the most brilliant quotes from any movie I've ever seen was Jurassic Park, when Jeff Goldblum's character, he says, your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. Science in a nutshell right there. But what's crazy though is because there haven't been any notable disasters or they have been hidden from humanity, science has been pushed into thinking that it just can keep doing this because there hasn't been any slap on the wrist. And honestly, like, I give that one over completely to divine intervention. There's no way. I mean, think about just the atomic bomb itself. How many things could have gone wrong that should have gone wrong that didn't?
How would we even remember? Because all of a sudden it's the way it always was, over and over again,
right?
Even though it's not. What do you think about the Mandela effect? And I've seen very clear weird stuff, and we've viewed it, and there is a relationship there with the Mandela effect. Not all of it, because a lot of it is just BS, but there are instances where reality shifts one way and then shifts the other way, shifts back and forth, that is caused by this type of stuff that's being experimented on a regular basis. And the more that it gets experimented on, the more problematic it is going to be, but we'll never even know what the problem was.
Right, because what happens is something weird, like Ed McMahon stopped holding up checks back in the 80s. And
or the next episode we do, Rob's a woke hippie. So it's like, we're all, he's just a woke hippie. He's always been that way.
Oh my gosh. Let's hope that isn't the result. Okay, so what's funny about this too is like this is a gigantic scientific Ouija board. You open a call to another realm and just trust that whoever's giving you the messages back isn't a serial killer. And like, why are they so excited? I mean, for me, I would be skeptical and think maybe I'm talking to a demonic entity, but that's just because I have those references from history. right? Like my first protocol, if I was managing that team, would be like, take notes, stop being so excited, and let's observe rather than let our emotions kind of take over here. This was supposedly the first documented case in which a machine was used to make contact or channel another being or entity over a prolonged period of time. And supposedly the researchers established contact only with this one entity, and it was verified to them in ways that are still highly classified, in which the whistleblower couldn't elaborate on. What was this entity? It said it was the equivalent of our student and had been allowed by his elders to interact with us, observe us, study and learn from us. His elders had noticed us on Earth and our whole solar system cross into their parallel universe. And the entity said we weren't the only one race reaching this crossroad or merging, and they could see other alien races from other planets in our solar system too. Our complete solar system was colliding with the reality of another parallel solar system. When humans with alien assistant and technology were playing with dark and portal matters, the result was our whole solar system traversed into their universe of perception. Now, what's so weird about this is the term matters here has a double meaning. It could just mean, general matters of dark and dark matter, or darkness and portal technology. But it could also mean dark matter. I mean, that's what they do at these collider facilities, is they're studying things like dark matter and portal matter, if that's what they're trying to do, right? What do you think about that?
No, I think that's a huge incentive to be working on these things. I think that probably, at least in the realm of public science with CERN and other colliders, they watch very closely that type of stuff and they take note from it and then begin to expand on probably the more strange and esoteric things that happen in the underground classified colliders. And I think that would be one. I mean, think of the movie Stargate. Of course, that's like based on something ancient that was found in ancient technology. But I've always felt that Stargate, to a degree, is a soft disclosure. And that those things are very, very, very much sought, because in theoretical physics, those types of things are theoretically a possibility. So I do believe, of course, they're going to be investigating that stuff and setting up the facilities to do that investigation. And like what we've spoken about before, like Montauk was one way of doing it. But how many other ways are there of doing this that are more stable, right? Perhaps that lead to a place that is not the in-between, but something else, something different, another reality, another world, another planet. I mean, this is also tech that would be related to, well, how do you move through the universe with a ship and not spend 5 years in a stasis tank? We've got to figure this stuff out, right? So there are resources to be had. There are worlds to conquer. Military would be wanting that.
Well, and what's so interesting about this too, just going off of what you just said, is the scientists thought that this meant that the entity was basically doing his PhD program, studying us in his own research program. And it was so all the elders could prepare, that the elders on his side could prepare their civilization for our arrival or merge. So the entity was doing reconnaissance on us. And the entity and elders were able to see certain events in our future leading up to a time which they called the fuse year, when the big event or the merge would occur. Now, what's so nuts about this is, what does that sound like? Maybe this is the reason for the Mandela effect. A parallel solar system collided with ours at this point, and maybe it wasn't the only time this has happened, which is basically what you were just saying, is that this kind of thing is a natural thing that happens in our universe, right?
Yeah. And I know it is a curiosity too, that started to pop up around that time frame.
What's crazy about that is that the first interaction that this entity had with the researchers brought up Nelson Mandela. Well, at least that's the first post the government propagandist put on the online forum when he was leaking the entity's info to the public. The first interaction. And And the first interaction also brought up Obama. Obama wasn't even in the scene. Well, he was. He was like a very low-level senator at that time. You have to remember, this was between 1994 or something and 1999. All right. Obama is a low-level senator, whatever. Yes, he's kind of upping the ranks, but they bring up Obama's name alongside Nelson Mandela, Margaret Thatcher, Dick Cheney, and old Bush.
Interesting. Wow. That's wild.
What? I mean, the implications of this stuff being that far ahead, could that not be true? I have to address this. Maybe they just made that up in the magazine, right? But you can go on to the Godlike Productions forum where all of this stuff was dropping and this guy first started posting. Did that start happening in 2008? Now, Obama had just entered into the presidency, so they could have been doing this as like, it could have been a ruse. Like, we have to take into consideration that these drops could have been some type of psychological operation. We have to, until we hear John's remote viewing data. And, you at home, regardless of even you believe that, you have to take that into consideration, that could have been done to impress people, that was the first drop. But if this is true, and that was the first drop, nuts.
Yeah.
That's totally nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really curious. Is that in the Chani article from Nexus?
Yeah.
Is it? I remember my first interaction with it was like around 2016, 2015 when I first heard of it. In fact, I was tasked on it way back then. So I don't. Yeah, man, that's wild. I don't know when the Mandela effect started to fester under the surface of conspiracy society. I'm not sure of the year of that.
Just for those of you at home, it's impossible for us to not make any mistakes, like zero mistakes. Like, that's going to happen from time to time. And what we can promise you is, if we do make a mistake and we can't correct the video, that we will put a pinned comment up at the top on the comments so you can see if we've made any mistakes. We're doing our best here, but we're not perfect. We're human. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so the question people are going to have, and this is kind of where it gets into, well, where's the psychological operation in this, right? Because this is an operation. Releasing this information has to be a part of some operation if they're leaking it at all, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, wasn't it said straight out that the person who leaked the information was part of a team that is assigned to leak information?
Right, which is where, man, you get into the realm of how do you verify any of this then, because the whole thing could be just a ruse, right? But we might be able to find more information about that, and John's team of remote viewing specialists will be able to tell us what they saw, just as a third party as a third party data point here. So hey guys, if you want to hear more information about the nature of psychological operations and John's remote viewing data, tune into the next episode, because we're just about out of time here, but there's so much more to this discussion and it's going to get pretty wild. Was this Chani Project just a government psyop designed to gauge the public's reaction? Did scientists in the 90s really make contact with an entity in another dimension? Is time travel possible? We'll be diving into all of that next time. And if you can't wait and you just need more metaphysical, you can get bonus content over at themetaphysical.tv, where we have over 1,000 videos on mysteries, ancient civilizations, and so much more. Thanks so much to all of our supporters over there who are the reason we're able to dive into all of these topics on this show. And until next time, we hope you thought this episode was out of this world.